Loud voices are heard in Peppa Pig's house. Peppa hides under the bed. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig are arguing. Their words are sharp as knives. George cries in his crib. His tears fall to the floor. Peppa covers her ears, but the sounds penetrate through her fingers. Fear paralyzes her. She sees shadows on the wall. They move chaotically. The family is falling apart. Beloved toys seem alien. They cannot protect her. Peppa remembers happy days, but memories fade. She tries to imagine that everything is fine, but reality presses down. Voices become quieter, then louder again. Hope disappears. Peppa feels cold. The house has become alien. She crawls out from under the bed. The room is empty. Mummy Pig sits on the sofa, her face devastated. Tears are silent. Daddy Pig stands by the window, his back tense. Silence is deafening. George sleeps, his face swollen from tears. Childhood is fading. Peppa tries to hug her mom, but she doesn't feel warmth. She looks at her dad. His gaze is empty. The walls of the house seem thinner. They cannot contain the pain. Peppa feels her world splitting apart. Cracks are everywhere. She tries to pick up the pieces, but they are sharp. Morning. The sun shines, but the house is empty. The family has disappeared. The pig family packs a picnic basket, but the food looks strange and unappetizing somehow. Daddy Pig drives down a road that becomes narrower and darker with each passing mile. Fog envelops the forest, hiding trees that seem too tall and unnaturally twisted and bent. Peppa steps out of the car and notices forest sounds are muffled and echo strangely. Mummy Pig spreads a blanket on a clearing where grass has an unnatural gray tint. George plays with his dinosaur, but the toy moves by itself in the thick fog. Grandpa Pig tells a story about a forest where time flows differently and much slower. Granny Pig takes pies from the basket that smell of unfamiliar and strange spices. Peppa goes to pick berries but finds fruits that glow softly in the dim light. The family sits to eat, but food tastes different from what they prepared at home. The fog grows thicker, and tree silhouettes begin to resemble frozen human figures standing still. George points to shadows between trees that move against the direction of the light. Daddy Pig tries to find the way back, but all paths lead deeper into forest. Mummy Pig calls the children, but her voice echoes off invisible walls around them. Peppa notices their reflections in a puddle show completely different people and strange creatures. Grandpa Pig looks at his watch, which runs backwards and shows the wrong time. Granny Pig whispers spells over leftover food, trying to find a way out of forest. The family packs up, but the basket becomes heavier, as if filled with invisible objects. They walk to the car, but the vehicle stands not where they left it. The fog clears for a moment, revealing they are in a completely different place now. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, but something felt wrong. Peppa and George were playing in their room when strange sounds came from outside. Mummy Pig was making breakfast, but her movements seemed mechanical. Daddy Pig was reading his newspaper, but his eyes never blinked. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Susie Sheep stood at the doorstep, wearing a pink suit with a triangle mask. Susie silently handed Peppa a pink card with symbols on it. Peppa took the card and her eyes lit up with strange gleam. George hid behind the bed in fear, sensing danger. Mummy Pig stopped cooking and turned toward the children. Daddy Pig slowly folded his newspaper and stood up. All family members stared at Peppa with empty eyes. Peppa left the house, following Susie down a dark path. George ran after them, but his legs became heavy. The forest around them grew darker and scarier. Trees whispered something sinister in the wind. Ahead appeared a large pink building with black windows. Inside the building, Peppa saw other familiar characters in pink suits. They all stood in a row like little soldiers. Their faces were hidden behind masks with geometric shapes. The air was heavy and frightening. Peppa felt she was trapped. Strange games began, but they weren't fun at all. The first game was red light, green light, with a giant doll. The doll turned around and its eyes glowed red. Those who moved disappeared in pink smoke. Peppa stood motionless, trembling with fear. The second game required cutting shapes from cookies. Peppa's hooves were shaking, but she tried her best. Other participants were nervous and made mistakes. Pink guards silently watched the process. Time was running out and tension was rising. The third game was tug-of-war over an abyss. Peppa found herself on a team with strangers. The rope was slippery and dangerous. The losing team fell into darkness below. Peppa pulled the rope with all her strength. The fourth game was marbles with cruel rules. Peppa had to knock out her opponent's marble. The loser disappeared forever in pink mist. Peppa played carefully but decisively. Her little heart beat with fear. The fifth game required crossing a glass bridge. Some panels were strong, others were fragile. Peppa walked slowly, testing each step. Behind her, other participants fell down. She reached the end, trembling. The final game was the most terrifying. Squid Game. Peppa had to reach the finish line. Her opponent tried to stop her at any cost, but Peppa remembered home and family. She gathered all her courage and strength. Peppa won the final game and woke up at home. It was just a terrible nightmare. George was sleeping nearby. Mummy and Daddy were alive. The sun was shining through the window. Everything was fine. Peppa realized that home and family are the most important things.
Sunny day slowly gave way to twilight. In Peppa Pig's house, everything was as usual. Daddy Pig was reading a newspaper. Mummy Pig was watering flowers on the windowsill. Peppa and George were playing in the living room, building a tall tower of blocks. Suddenly, Peppa heard a strange, barely audible whisper. It came from behind the wall, as if someone was trying to say something, but the words were indistinct. Peppa listened intently. The whisper repeated, a little louder this time, and Peppa felt a slight tingling in her ears. She looked around, but no one seemed to hear anything. George continued to play enthusiastically. Mummy Pig was humming a tune, and Daddy Pig was peacefully dozing. Peppa approached the wall from where the whisper came. She put her ear to the cold surface. The whisper became clearer, but still remained incomprehensible. It sounded like many voices speaking at once, intertwining and merging into a single, disturbing hum. Peppa felt her heart beat faster. She tried to call Mummy Pig, but her voice caught in her throat. The whisper became more insistent, as if trying to penetrate her mind. Peppa recoiled from the wall, feeling dizzy. She thought she saw shadows moving at the edges of her vision, but when she tried to focus, they disappeared. She closed her eyes, trying to get rid of the intrusive sound, but it only intensified, turning into a cacophony that filled all her thoughts. Peppa opened her eyes. The world around her had changed. Colors became dull and sounds muffled. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig continued with their activities, but now they seemed distant and alien, like actors in a poorly staged play. George sat on the floor, his eyes empty, and a strange, serene smile frozen on his face. Peppa tried to touch him, but her hand passed through his body as if he were a ghost. She realized that she too had changed. She no longer felt her body, no longer heard her breathing. She was part of this whisper, part of this silence. She was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. She watched as Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig continued to live their ordinary lives, unaware that their children had disappeared, dissolved into this whisper in their own distorted world. The whisper continued. Now it was her own voice, a voice she didn't recognize. It called others, those who were like her, those who had also dissolved into this silent presence. And they came. The shadows grew denser, filling the house, filling the world. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig continued to smile, unaware that they were no longer alone. Something was with them, something that whispered in their ear, something that slowly but surely took them, and soon they too will become part of this whisper.